Hi, I'm Barbara Lucas, and welcome to the Green Room, where we explore the environmental topics that green up our world. The average American throws away a ton of material a year. That's a huge waste of resources. And as our world gets more crowded and people consume and throw away more, it's hard to deal with all that waste. What can we do to throw away less here in Washtenaw County? Today we have two of the most knowledgeable people on this topic, Bryan Weinert, currently of Recycle Ann Arbor, who previously served for 20 years as Ann Arbor's solid waste coordinator, and Jim Frey, CEO and co-founder of Resource Recycling Systems, a national and international waste consulting firm based right here in Ann Arbor. Jim and Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to start out briefly talking about the 3R hierarchy. To give you a little backstory on that, I was thinking about how I grew up burning trash in the backyard, and if we had something big, we'd just throw it in the dump. And then sanitary landfills came in, and we had the nice liners that kept the leachate from getting into the groundwater and poisoning it. And then when I was in college, recycling came in, and we were all excited about that. In fact, I heard that, Jim, you were one of the co-founders of Recycle Ann Arbor. How many years ago was that?
You know, it was about 36 years ago that I became involved, and the founders had an original vision that I helped accelerate.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So recently, the excitement I've noticed has been around reducing and reusing. So I guess, like an example of a mug, even if it was recyclable, first, do I really need a new mug, or can I buy a reused mug? And then the last choice would be recycling it. It's a good choice, but maybe you got to go through the hierarchy first. Is that
Right,
the idea?
and you also think about, so common now in office buildings are the refillable water stations.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you used to just go get a sip of water and you were
Yeah.
done. Well, now we've sort of changed, and you can now take your mug or take your water bottle and refill it instead of, you know, having to purchase a one-time use bottle.
Yeah.
So those things take a little time to get into the infrastructure of our communities, but they're happening.
Yeah, that's a good example, because a lot of people say, well, I can recycle my bottle, but, well, you might not even need the bottle.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, Bryan, you're the chair of the committee that was recently updating the Washtenaw County Solid Waste Management Plan.
Correct.
So help us get a little lay of the land in terms of what we have here in Washtenaw
Yeah.
County.
So to provide a little bit of context, Washtenaw County has about 350,000 residents. So at your ton a year average, we're about 350,000 tons a year of waste that we generate as a county. That's about 3.5% of the state population, just to give a sense of size and scale. Ann Arbor, of course, is the county seat, largest community. We have one landfill in Washtenaw County. It's in the far northeast corner in Salem Township. We have 3 compost facilities, a couple waste transfer stations that transfer waste to final disposal destinations. We have no waste incinerators in the community. Washtenaw County operates a household hazardous waste drop-off facility out of Scioto Township, about 20-25 collection days per year. There's one primary drop-off station and a number of kind of auxiliary or smaller scale drop-off stations within Washtenaw County right now. So there's a fairly good infrastructure in place, although as we'll talk about further, we're really not right now doing everything we can to maximize recovery in the county.
And I've heard the funny name MRFs. What's that?
Yes, it stands for Materials Recovery Facility. So that's the kind of acronym for those type of facilities that basically generally now take in mixed recyclables and do a kind of a cleaning and sorting process and prepare those materials for markets, for factories that use it as those materials then as a feedstock to make new products.
And we have one of those on the west side of the county in Chelsea area, and one of them here in the Ann Arbor area as well. So.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
So it used to be free to, throw your stuff in the river or burn your stuff, but in a sense it wasn't free, because now we're paying for what our ancestors did with all the pollution and everything we're trying to clean up. So if we don't want to cause costs for our children and grandchildren, we have to pay something up front, right? So these services that you gave us the lay of the land of, we have to put out a little money to pay for. So where's the funding come from?
So in 2 primary sources, one of which are the user fees, the fees that individuals or households pay for services. The other major one is through local taxes, generally property taxes, generally assessed at the local level. Those are the 2 primary sources of how waste gets paid for within the county, and then there are some county-based programs. There is a landfill surcharge, so Washtenaw County gets about $900,000 a year from being the host county for the Arbor Hills landfill that they use then to fund various recovery efforts in the county. There's some state and federal grant dollars that flow in, but I'd say by and large it's fees that we pay personally for disposal or handling of our waste, and then the property taxes that go with it. And let me just add to that, we have a bit of a misallocation of cost, because you think of the source of that waste is those products and packaging, right, that our goods and services are provided through, but it ends up being government, by and large, or us as individuals that have to bear the negative cost of then dealing with those materials on the back end. Some countries are moving toward an idea in which the producer has a responsibility to pay for some of the costs and to motivate them to reduce or minimize the amount of waste that's ultimately generated in that process. In the United States, sadly, we bear the brunt of those costs ourselves, or our local governments do.
Well, and that's an interesting feature of City of Chelsea with their pay-as-you-throw program, where the fact that the citizens do have to pay is a reason why they actually recycle more. I think they recycle the highest amount in the county. It's that price message that we as citizens actually make better choices when we actually have to be confronted with how much does it cost me to pay for that bag of trash versus put it in the recycle bin.
That's like, we have a place up on Beaver Island, a summer place, and the trash bags are $4 a bag. And it's amazing how careful we are up on Beaver Island in terms of, you know, not buying stuff we don't need and not throwing things away improperly, because, you know, each bag costs money. So I think it's a great system.
Yeah, there's a phrase in the industry called the Seattle Stomp, and Seattle was the first place to really have a well-known bag and tag program, as they say, and people would stomp on their bags to compact them and then put more material in. So it works. It motivates people to be more efficient, but also to recycle more and reduce and reuse more.
And to be cognizant of what I'm buying too. You know, I think, oh, how am I going to get rid of that? You know, all that trash.
Good purchasing decisions.
Yeah. Talking about misconceptions of recycling, I thought that was what you were getting at. I wanted to throw that out. That a lot of people think that recycling is a moneymaker and that we shouldn't have to pay to recycle because some of the materials can, you know, be profitable. But what's the problem with that line of thinking?
That generally is just not reality. One of the challenges of recycling is the ebb and flow in the value of materials. Often mirrors the larger business cycle in the United States and worldwide. And so there's some volatility and variability in the pricing that's received. And you have to remember that even during kind of good years, when there's a relatively high market price for recyclables, that can cover the cost of processing those materials, getting those shipped to market, and may begin to make a dent in the cost of collecting those materials. But the reality is that there is no system that will cover the full cost of collection, processing, marketing, and or disposal on the back end. So that is a reality, and it's a shame that in some ways recycling has gotten that kind of reputation that somehow if it doesn't pay for the system, it's not worth doing, when the fact of the matter is it's still cheaper on a per ton basis to recycle and to recover materials in general over putting it in a hole in the ground and then dealing with the long-term consequences and costs associated with that. But there still is a net cost.
And that's one of the values of the county solid waste planning process, is it helps all the local units of government and the county work together to put the right services in place to make that recycling cost effective and easy, but still has to acknowledge that there is a cost.
Yeah, you were talking about the long-term costs. We all know that long-term it's better to do these things, but that we all could be reducing more, recycling more, et cetera. Something you mentioned before the show was that one of the roles of governments is to make it easy for people to do the right thing. When I moved here to Ann Arbor about 6 years ago, I was actually thrilled with the convenience of some of the things, the services such as the compost bins. We have a really shady lot, so I can't compost in my backyard, and I'm able to just throw in food scraps, things all year round, and in that bin, and then they get picked up in the spring. I love it.
Yeah.
So we've talked about saving money, increasing convenience. I think you've mentioned having more options available for places that you can take your recyclables. For instance, I hear that you can take mattresses to the drop-off station, which is great. So part of that is developing markets, right? Because there wasn't a market for mattresses before, was there?
Yes, and that's where, you know, the innovation of the private sector really comes in. I'm not sure government is in the position to maybe provide some grants, some, you know, upfront capital cost, or some pilot programs for kind of specialty material collection, but it really is the private sector, and I think it's been an incredible success story in the United States to see the changes, the investment that's been made at the private sector level, at all kind of layers, from very small businesses to extremely large, some of the largest businesses in the United States, kind of building that infrastructure for recycling that's really made so much recovery possible.
And expand that too to be also the not-for-profit sector. Recycle Ann Arbor being a great example of that, but also in our community we have just a vast number of options for second-hand clothing, consignment goods. Many of those are nonprofit businesses as well as for-profit. Mattress deconstruction activities in some parts of the state and some parts of the country are done by local nonprofits and sometimes by private companies. All of them are finding a combination of the right mission, the right thing to do, along with the right economic balance, the business case, if you will. And then they make it work. It's not like they're making millions of dollars, but they're making enough money to provide these great services to our community.
And as a citizen, I've noticed that education has been a really great thing, such as when we moved to town, we built a new house. And I didn't know this, but I learned that construction and demolition debris is a huge component of our landfills. And Calvert's roll-offs, we had one of those come in, and they were able to recycle a lot of the materials. So that was exciting. I learned coming here that you're not to throw all kinds of things down the drain, such as your household hazardous waste, your medicines, your fats and oils. What else did I learn? Oh, I thought this was kind of cool that I don't have to put my trash out every week. If I don't feel it's full and it's not smelling and it's not a problem with critters, I can, you know, save it for once a month or whatever. You know, which makes me wonder, are there any communities that allow you to pay less for less frequent pickup?
Right, that direction that you're going, where the more you use your recycling service, the more you make good buying decisions and reduce what you buy, the more you're able to divert your organics. One of the things that happens, whether you save money on it or not, is that you find that that trash cart can be put out once every other week, once every month, once every 6 weeks. There are parts of the country, Portland, Oregon is an example, and then some parts of the Northern California area where you actually can sign up for a once a month or once every other week collection of your trash, basically acknowledging that there's savings to the hauler or to the municipality, and they will pass that on to you as an incentive. That's certainly true here no matter what, is that when you put your cart out here in Ann Arbor or in the local community in the county, you're saving the collection system some money when it's not needing to be put out until it's full. That's a good thing.
Yeah, and you get less air pollution from all the trucks on the roads and that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Which makes me think about the inefficiencies. When we were talking before the show about having the different municipalities coordinate and the problem with multiple haulers. Is that something that they're working on in the new plan?
Yes, actually, I do hope so. You know, the downside, as you mentioned, and there are multiple communities that have what's called subscription service, where you just go to the white pages on your computer and find the local haulers, and you call that hauler and you cut your best deal because the community itself doesn't coordinate that service in any way. So you can have a half dozen or more haulers literally driving down a street, a road, to pick up materials. So you think of the air pollution.
Potholes.
Oh yeah, you know, the wear and tear on roads. Safety
Yeah.
issues.
Little kids trying to play in the street.
The carbon footprint Traffic and the cost. Of course it costs more to you as a household to pay for that service when a hauler's got to drive 3 miles between stops instead of 35 feet between stops. And those are the kinds of efficiencies that no one is gaining right now. Maybe some haulers, but no one is gaining from that kind of system. So we need to be thoughtful and smart. And then if there are savings, perhaps some of those savings can go towards the recovery-based programs or other services.
One of the most gratifying things in our consulting business is when we help a community organize its collection, and frequently we'll count the total spend of all the households before and the services they're getting. A lot of times they're just getting a basic trash service, and then after we help them organize the collection, the community as a whole will spend anywhere from 30 to 50% less, and they've added curbside recycling service with a cart. They've added organic service. They may have added household hazardous waste service. So you talk about making smart buying decisions. That's something that government can do. It can help bundle services and get very affordable pricing.
I love those win-wins.
Yeah, exactly.
It makes me think of the new excitement over vintage. My kids and all kinds of people are really into consignment shopping. And it's such a fun, easy way to keep things out of the landfill. Another huge low-hanging fruit, it's almost a pun, is the food waste issue.
Right.
That's a growing excitement over that.
It is, and I was just checking earlier today, EPA now estimates about a third of the waste we generate as a nation is organic waste, and a good share of that, I think over 50% of that, is food waste. Even with the best of intentions, there is waste in the food system. There are certainly things that all of us can do to reduce the amount of food waste that we generate, but there's absolutely no reason for that material to be thrown into a landfill when there are compost facilities, including one here in Washtenaw County that takes food waste currently. Tremendous opportunities, not only in the residential sector, but also in the commercial sector as well. Ann Arbor is a great example of particularly in the downtown area. I think it's, close to 250, 300 restaurants in the DDA area. Huge potential, and right now a huge waste for that material to be thrown away when it can be turned into a useful end product again. So that really, I think, is the single largest horizon in the future in terms of the recovery potential as a percentage of our waste stream overall. And I'm pleased that multiple communities are now looking at those opportunities for expanding that service.
Well, it seems like there's a whole lot of different ways that we're going to be making less waste here in Washtenaw County in the future. So it's pretty exciting stuff.
Definitely is.
So in terms of further resources, how can somebody get Washtenaw County's solid waste plan?
I would suggest just Googling Washtenaw County solid waste, and you'll be directed to the site. And from there you can see the various documents that are available that relate to that solid waste plan and the services that are provided by Washtenaw County. Another great source of information is Recycle Ann Arbor's website, www.recycleannarbor.org. One of the features they have, and it's right on their cover page as well, is A to Z guide for waste. And there are hundreds of individual products that are listed in that A to Z guide, and they tell you exactly what the product is and what the best resources are within Washtenaw County for how to either dispose of those materials properly or to see them recovered or used again for reuse. So it's a wonderful resource that's been compiled.
Great. Well, we're just about out of time. So thank you so much, Jim and Bryan, for being here today. It's been really great.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
For an online archive of today's show, go to ewashtenaw.org/greenroom. Thanks for joining us here in the Green Room.